You,
Ah, there she is.
I make my life hard. That's what I do. I just played softball, and I just push everything off until everything is an emergency. But here I am.
Oh, well, thank you
Sorry.
so much for joining us. No problem. We appreciate your time. We're just happy that you could fit us into your schedule.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, it is time for this chat to get started. I don't want to take up too much of your time. We know it's precious.
All here now. Thank you.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Tonight, I have the honor of speaking with returning guest Jane L. Rosen for her newest book, A Shoe Story. It's a novel about a young woman named Esme Nash who has about a month and a closet full of shoes to discover the future that she thought she'd lost. And so a few quick thank yous before we get started. A special thanks to Jennifer Crowley for everything she does behind the scenes, the group founder, to make these chats possible. And thank you to all of the moms who have already read the book, loved it, expressed their appreciation and their reviews in the group and outside of the group, told their friends about it. And to all of the moms who couldn't make it tonight, but are going to check this chat out on our YouTube channel, welcome. We are so glad that you are able to join us.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jane. Well, let's dive right in. For our members who might not have read A Shoe Story yet, just tell us a little bit about the story in your own words.
I love the cover. Thank you. The cover has a story of its own. A Shoe Story is the story of Esme Nash, a young woman who graduates college and her life is turned upside down by a family tragedy. 7 years later, she's able to have a second chance by going to New York for 1 month to dog sit for a woman with a fabulous collection of shoes. And it's basically about second chances, about maybe rethinking what you thought was right for you. And it's just about love and perseverance, I think.
Yeah.
New York City and shoes.
Yeah. All great things. I loved, Esme, she was what, around 30 in the book, thereabouts?
Yeah. She was 29, she'll be 30.
Yeah. I love that the message of second chances and that it's never too late and you can reinvent yourself, or you can go back to the path that you had to deviate for whatever reason and get back on it, or maybe even make it better than what you thought you lost from the get-go. So I think you did that really well. Let's just talk a little bit about like what drew you to the story of a second chances like that.
Well, I think, I was a mom, I'm still a mom, but I was concentrated on my kids for a long time. And then I began writing and I wrote screenplays. And then this whole novel situation is a real second act for me. And I think it's important to realize that you can reinvent yourself in, many different ways. Whatever it is that you're not happy with, there's just always time. So I think that's what drew me to it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a lawyer by day, and so that took a lot of work to become that. But I always think, maybe I don't know that I'm going to want to do this for the rest of my life. So the idea of second chances and being able to reinvent yourself really spoke to me, and I thought you did it great with Esme. I was so happy to be a part of her journey and get to see how it all came to fruition. What was the inspiration behind telling this story?
Meaning the inspiration, just
just the story. How did it come to you? Why Esme? Okay. And
so I was on I live in Fire Island for part of the year, and I was on a ferry boat, which is how we get here. And I was talking to this older man named Saul Zabar, and he's the owner of Zabar's in New York City, the appetizing store, just like Cy in the book. So he was basically telling me how like all his friends were dead and he had no one to talk to. And he goes into the store just to talk to people. And I just started thinking about a young woman and an older man becoming friends. And it's not the full gist of the story, but it kind of inspired that part of the story. And, my first book, 9 Women, 1 Dress, was about a dress. So I was thinking about doing a book about another fashion item. And it just came to me that someone could step into, no pun intended, a person's apartment that had amazing shoes. So that's how it came to me.
Well, before we get to like the misunderstanding of that's in the book, I was like, wow, this she's just gonna wear all these shoes strutting around New York City. And then when it was explained to the reader, I just thought that was so clever and fun, and I loved that bit of the book. So.
Well, they made it like I'm a moral person, but I like didn't even think about the fact that, of course, you shouldn't wear this woman's shoes. So I had like, it was my editor who was like, you gotta make it that there's like a reason why she could wear all these shoes. I'm like, oh, you're right. Like that would not be cool if someone came and stayed in your apartment and wore all your shoes. So yeah, it was a simple misunderstanding.
Yeah, well, great job to your editor for suggesting that.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, so I have to be honest, I didn't read the blurb. I don't always read blurbs when I sat down to read a book. I just kind of like to not go in with any preconceived notions. So I was a bit taken aback by the start of the books, beginning with this tragedy that occurs to Esme and then her having to step into this caregiver role. That being said, it immediately invested me in Esme's journey, you know, to see her have to put things aside to take care of her family. You know, when the world was supposed to be her oyster, she put that on a shelf to step up and do some family obligations. Tell us a little bit about the decision to make that the catalyst, you know, the tragedy that started for Esme's journey.
I think that I tend to, I don't want to say, I tend to like mix the dark and the light. I think that's the way most of my books are, or most of my stories are. So it just, I like to help the underdog kind of. So I thought, I don't know, it's like I like to start when someone has to overcome something very often in my stories. So that
you talked about Sai and Esme's relationship or friendship in the book was one of my favorite parts of a shoe story. I just loved it. It was so endearing and heartwarming. And then Sai's own little journey on the side. Just how did that come to fruition? I feel like there's a story behind that relationship or Sai's story.
Yes. Well, that story was really amazing for me to write because I took Sai's partially based on the gentleman I was telling you about before, but he's also partially based on my dad. So my dad died when I was 11 and he was in the Coast Guard in World War II. So I took the whole story of Sai, and Sai's first love is very closely akin to my parents' love story, except obviously my parents got married and had me and 3 other children. But so that was really fun to retell. And then I took Sai's entire journey in World War II is my father's journey in World War II. So I took like his ship number and I traced it and I saw where the boat went, which was the coast of Africa and then Sicily, Salerno, and Normandy. And I took letters that he wrote home to his mom and used like those exact words. Sorry, my hair is soaking wet. I used those exact words in the book. So that was really just great for me because I got to feel kind of close to my dad to experience what it was he must have been feeling at 17 years old to go to war. It was pretty amazing to feel, just to think of things like that through his eyes. So that was a great part of the researching and the writing of that story.
Mm-hmm. Was there anything in particular that drew you to having this multi-generation friendship? Like, why was that such an important part of the story to tell?
I love multi-generational friendships. I really do. My next book called On Fire Island is completely based on multi-generational friendships. As I told you before, I live in Fire Island for half the, most of the summer. And it's a place where you end up being friends with like 16-year-olds and 80-year-olds. It's bizarre because it's such a small town and everyone's, hanging out or playing softball or going to the beach. And it's just the way it works. So I think there's so much to get out of being friends with youth and being friends with older people. It's really important. So I just, I wanted to show that.
Yeah. I wish that I had tried to make more of an effort to be like friends with my grandparents when I was young, but you just don't know. And you always think that they'll be forever. But now that I'm a little bit older, I certainly would like to have friendships like that myself, because I do feel like they have so much to give and so many stories to tell and so much wisdom to pass on. They're not to just be put on a shelf or out to pasture, you know, as the saying goes. So I love to read stories like that. I'm so excited to hear that it will be prominently featured on Fire Island.
Yeah, it will. It will. And there's even like at the back of the paperback, I wrote about like this charity called DeRote, where you could volunteer to just visit older people in New York. And I did that for years with my kids. And I really got a lot out of it. So even if you don't have a grandparent, you can find some lonely person to take under your wing if you really want to.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Sounds like a great organization. Well, I live in Houston, Texas, which is a far cry from New York City. I have visited twice and enjoyed my time there. I love how your writing really brought the city to life. Why did you choose New York City for the setting? And then how did you go about picking which places to set chapters in?
So I live in New York City. My last book, as a lot of you know, is Eliza Starts a Rumor, which took place in the Hudson Valley, where I've been but never lived. And there's something so nice about writing about what you know. And I felt like I lived in Soho, which is downtown New York City, for the past couple of years. Before that, I lived on the Upper East Side. So it was very fun for me to like just dive into my new neighborhood and set a story there. And there haven't been as many stories set, I think, in Greenwich Village as of late. So I just thought it'd be fun. And it was fun. And it was really fun to just, through Esme's eyes as a visitor, to have 1 month there to show like, what would I want to show someone for a month? And I really felt like I accomplished that. Like a lot of people have been writing down, you know, where she went and stuff, and like the tips, you know, because it's actually like a really great little tour of New York.
Definitely. Yeah. There should be a little like guide to New York, Esme's Guide to New York, included in maybe a supplement paperback or whatnot. But so each chapter is titled and features a particular pair of shoes. How did you go about choosing which style of shoes to feature?
Well, I don't know if you follow me on Instagram, but if you do, I have been doing a shoe a day. I started it about a week ago. People are like loving it. They're writing to me every day. I just show a picture of each shoe and I talk about why I chose that shoe, and I send links in my stories, and it's very, very fun. People have just been eating it up. So it was all based on a bunch of things. First of all, there are shoes that, if you're a real like shoeaholic, had to be in the book. And I am not a real shoeaholic. I love shoes, but I mean, I was talking like the women that are really obsessed with it, like collecting them. So I knew that I had to put in like the Manola Blahnik Hangsty and the Hermes Orin and the Chanel Ballet Flat. Like there's certain shoes that had to be in there, and the Louboutin, of course. So that was part of the choosing of the shoes. Then another part of it was that the book is set in 2016, before COVID, which became like a thing that you had to decide. Are you putting COVID in your book? Are you ignoring COVID? So I said it before COVID. And so then I had to go through and remove shoes that weren't available in 2016. So that was interesting. And then I had to really like kind of think, what would she wear? Where she's going? You know, what would make her feel a little extra special, or, you know, make her give her the confidence to, you know, do whatever she was doing or be whoever she was being that night or that day. And it was fun. It was really fun. I had a great time with all of it. And then I got to Louboutin, made me an event in the Hamptons. They gave me a gorgeous pair of shoes. Ferragamo's giving me a pair of shoes for an event in September. And Nordstrom did a huge event for my release, which was amazingly fun. Mm-hmm. And also, if you go on my Instagram, you'll see we filmed like a little video there with all the shoes that they had in stock. So the whole shoe thing ended up being great fun for me.
Yeah, we linked, I think, was it the Rihanna, was it Fendi shoes or whatever? I am not good with brands, but we linked that today and told everybody to go check out your Instagram feed, because you are highlighting and giving a little tidbit about each shoe. So if you haven't done that already, be sure to check our stories today, and it will take you to Jane's Instagram. It is a lot of fun. I enjoy the journey. I don't have a favorite pair of shoes, but I do have shoes that I love to wear. I couldn't tell you the name brand, but so one of our members who is here tonight, she had asked, what is your favorite or most memorable pair of shoes?
You know, I think that my most favorite memorable pair of shoes was probably like my blue suede clogs that my mother let me get in like 7th grade that I thought had a heel. And she let, it wasn't really a big heel, but it was more of a heel than I'd ever had. So those were, I loved them. What else? I had this pair of Prada slip-ons, not slip-ons. They were like a sporty kind of Prada shoe. And I really loved them. They had like a mesh top. And it's kind of came into part of the story because I was in Fire Island and I went to a party and I kicked them off just at my feet and their dog ate them. So when I got back to the city, I met this man on the street, somewhat like the way Esme met Sai. And he took me to this shoemaker named Mrs. Berger, who was this Russian woman. And he's like, she could fix anything. And she fixed my shoes and we became friendly. And she gave me crazy advice, just the way Mrs. Berger gives advice to Esme. So that's a good shoe story, right? So that kind of is my favorite pair too.
That is a good shoe story. I'm glad that she got to feature into your book in that way. Given that each chapter encapsulates certain moments, did you write this story in a linear fashion from start to finish, or did you kind of bounce around in certain scenes or certain shoes? And how did you write a shoe story?
A shoe story started out differently. It started out with like a different plot for Esme, oddly enough. And so this story, the size story was kind of a whole piece that I plugged in with the new Esme story. Follow what I mean? So it was kind of linear, but linear with some bumps.
Did you plot it out in advance, or did you kind of just let the story naturally unfold as you were writing?
I always plot it out in advance, and not like meticulously. Like I see some authors have like folders and note cards and stickers and all of this stuff. I basically take like big 5x7 cards, write the chapters, what would happen, very basic. And I know that I put them all over the floor and I know I got from A to Z. And then I don't even look at it again, but I kind of have to just know that I would never be able to just write and hope it's going to have a middle and an end.
I know that would make me anxious too, but I am not a writer. So it's always an interesting question.
Really make me nervous. Oh my God.
Well, you touched briefly on all of the cross-market opportunities that have evolved with the shoe story and the shoe departments in Nordstrom. How did that come to be? Was it through your publisher, or did shoe companies just reach out to you?
It wasn't really, it was my publisher helped me with everything, but I kind of like started the ball rolling myself. Like, in other words, you're not going to believe it. I really just went to lunch at Nordstrom's, went into the shoe department, said, hello, I'm writing this book. Could I speak to the manager? And then they brought me to the store manager, and the store manager gave me the name of the publicity person. And then I connected my whole team. So it was really kind of just a great lesson in like, give it a shot, see what happens. And everyone is just, especially I think after COVID, the companies have all been so receptive to being involved because everyone's looking for different ways to spark interest in, shoes or whatever they're selling. And like 9 West had given them the pre-order discount code, like people, and Jessica Rich did, people were into it. Mostly anyone I reached out to was interested in helping out or partnering up or whatever you would call it, which was great.
Yeah, I love that. Have you gotten to do many in-person events? Because I feel like when Eliza Starts a Rumor came out, you weren't able to do that many in-person events because of COVID, if any. I can't recall, but have you gotten to do in-person events, and how have those been this time around?
Fun. It's really fun to be in person. And the Nordstrom event was in person. I just did a synagogue at Fire Island, which was so fun. I did 2 events in the Hamptons last week, which were very fun. Yeah, it's great. I did an event on the Jersey Shore. And it's just been great to be in person and talk to readers again and sign books. It's fun. It's like you go into it like, oh, like I'm going to, not nervous, but just, I don't know. I mean, even now I keep looking, oh my God, my hair is what I keep playing with my hair. Like, but in truth, I just love talking to people about writing in my books, and you get it. It's great. I love it. I like Zooms, but I think I like Inperson's better.
I can totally understand that. I appreciate that. We also appreciate you taking the time to still do Zooms, because we are a book club full of moms, and we do not always have the time to go to those in-person events that we would love to meet our authors in person, but we do love hearing the inspiration and the stories behind the book. So still many thanks for making this happen tonight.
Of course, it's the best thing that happened from COVID, that I could even like talk to people. And I mean, you're from all over the country, right? How amazing is that?
Mm-hmm. Well, when we first started, I had said that I loved the cover for Issue Story, and you said that there was a little story behind that. So tell us a little bit about the story behind the cover.
So I will. It's great. I think it's a great story. So the funny thing is, when you're an author, I was a screenwriter before I was an author. And when you're a screenwriter, they just basically, you don't even know why they care about your opinion, because they don't. It's like, they just don't. And it's like something really to get used to. Like, but when I became an author, all of a sudden they're like, do you like this? Do you like that? Like, it's my book. It's so bizarre. A screenplay is their, they buy it and it's theirs, but this is still my book the whole time. It's a whole different respect level, I want to say. So it was shocking to me when it was like, the cover is all, they have artists and they present you with things, but it's up to you. And that amazed me. I was like, what do I know about a cover, right? But with this cover, I didn't like it. It was like tan, and it had like fuddy-duddy kind of shoes, not like the shoes in the story. And I was just like, ugh. And they loved it. So I had to they set up a Zoom meeting with like everyone, even like the top of the line there. And I said to my middle daughter, who's an artist, I'm really upset. I love the font and I love this, but I wish it was like blue, and I wish there was shoes hanging off. She's like, give me a few minutes. She took their cover. She took out the fuddy-duddy shoes. She took like one Louboutin and hung it from the Y, let's say. And I had it, right? My agent was like, you can't do that. You can't show them another cover. There's a whole art department. I'm like, okay, but I don't know I don't know how I'm going to explain it. So as I'm trying to explain it and they're not getting it, finally, I just went like this with Nellie's cover. I'm like, here, this is what I like. And they were like, oh. And that was, then it became this amazing cover, which I think is fantastic. I love it. I
think it's fantastic too. I can't even imagine a cover where you have fuddy-duddy shoes that aren't even featured in the book. I mean, they play such a prominent role, and the title is a shoe story. I mean,
I know. It was more abstract. And I just sent them the actual shoes. I was like, please put in the Manola and the Louboutin and the Rock Stud. And this is the 9 West, because we wanted to include one that's more affordable to all of us normal people. So yeah, it was great.
I feel like
inside and in the back, there's shoes everywhere. That's that's the Chloe ballet flat, and this is the tribute Yves Saint Laurent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I get confused, but yes, very fun.
I feel like when we talked about Eliza Starts a Rumor, you had actually kind of pulled the group. You were tossing around titles for this book. And I don't think it was always a shoe story. How did you land on the title?
Oh, that's right. I think it was the August of Esme Nash, maybe.
Yeah, I think we talked about that. Mm-hmm.
I think I just really wanted the shoes to be a part of it. And I honestly think if it wasn't called a shoe story, I don't know if it's good for anything that I got to do all this fun stuff with Louboutin, but I don't think they wouldn't have been involved. I mean, it's literally called a shoe story. So I was kind of pushing for the shoe correlation. People like to put the word summer in summer books, mm-hmm. which I understand. But that's why the August of Esme Nash was like, a good title.
I feel like with all of the, go ahead, sorry.
No, I mean, I think this has it's going to keep going. You know what I mean? Like, I hope.
I hope so too. That was kind of to my next point. It was with the title, with the shoes that you've featured in the book, and with Sex and the City kind of having its reboot moment on HBO Max, I would love to see Carrie reading this book at some little cafe. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Wouldn't that be
somebody
awesome?
needs to make that happen.
Yes, everybody make that happen. And also, do you know who Eva Chen is? She's like, you have to make that happen too. She's a book club. Everybody write to her and say, have you seen the book A Shoe Story?
I will.
Yeah. I think this is too close to home for Carrie. You know?
I know. Yeah, but one can dream.
I dream on. I dreamed about it too. I actually went to see what play was she just in? The Neil Simon play? Plaza Suite. And I brought a copy and I gave it to someone to bring backstage to her. But I don't know what happened.
Fingers crossed that it found its way to her.
I think we would know already.
Well, Faye had asked in the acknowledgements, you thank a handful of authors for their support. I love seeing that because I feel like it shows that authors are a part of community instead of in competition with each other. How do you lean on other authors as a writer?
Authors are very much, most of them. There's definitely ones that are not, but they're very much a community, or try to be a community, because it's such a solitary thing. I mean, you literally could be sitting in your house and you could just never leave and just write, you know, especially with Zooms. You could have, like, during COVID, all I did was go on the Zoom, right? So it's actually very funny. Do you remember that I had this whole controversy with Eliza Starts a Rumor? I may have spoken about it. Right. So for anyone who doesn't know, I reached out to all these different moms groups, you know, like the Peloton moms, but some, you know, the groups that you're in that you find out like whatever's going on in your school or your town, the Facebook groups of every town, you know. So there's a bunch in New York City. So I reached out to the Upper East Side moms and I set up this, she was excited to set up this book talk with me, and it was great. And 80 moms signed up and bought the book, and I was so excited. And then one day I go on to just say a little message about whatever, and I'm blocked. I'm not in the group anymore. I can't get on. So I reach out to the woman who I spoke to, and she's like, I didn't like how you described the Upper East Side moms in the book. I'm like, what? Like, it was so absurd. So the New York Post found out about it, and they called me because they thought it was very funny that I was thrown out of this group, and because of like talking about Birkin bags. Like, I gave a quote, like, if you can't talk about a Birkin bag, then the Upper East Side moms group, like, where can you talk about a Birkin bag? So from me getting thrown out, this woman, Zibby Owens, do you know who she is? She's like the patron saint of authors. She wrote an article about it, and all these other authors started supporting me and backing me. And that is how Ellen Hildebrand read my book and loved it. And then she read this book and she blurbed it right on the cover, which is like amazing. She's amazing. And it just became this whole great thing for me. What was bad turned to good. So. Yeah,
I love how Ellen and Zibby both champion authors that most people might not know about, and it's a very uplifting thing in my opinion. So
yeah, as a book club, and she picked my book for the July book, and it was really amazing.
Right? Yeah, Literati. I remember that. So in A Shoe Story, who would you say was the most difficult character to write, and why?
Difficult? I don't know. I don't think anyone was very difficult.
Well, who was your favorite character?
I guess maybe, you know what was difficult? It was difficult. Did everyone read it? It was difficult to write Liam because I really had to make him likable. Like it was showing such a line because a lot of people didn't know who Esme was going to pick.
Yeah, I did not know until the end. And even then I wasn't sure if that person was going to be around in the end. So.
See, so it was very hard to make him to make you waffle a little. Like, did you want her to pick Liam? Did you want her to pick Zach?
You know, I kind of wanted her to pick the person that she ended up with, but I did go back and forth. It was never like a slam dunk. So if that's what you were going for, mission accomplished with me.
So that was hard because, you know, you obviously in your head, you have I knew who she was ending up with, right? So I had to go back and forth, you know, and say like each person has to have great qualities, but which one would match Esme more? So that was hard. That was hard.
Yeah. And I do like that they both had great qualities. It was not such a cut and dry decision, an easy decision to make. She had choices, and that's never a bad thing. So.
And yeah, and you have to wonder, like, you know, who you would really pick. I don't know. Like, I'd like to think I'd pick one, but maybe I would pick the other. Like, I don't know.
Well, if anybody else has any other questions for Jane, please feel free to write them in the chat. I've got a few more, and I want to make sure that if you've got one, we get to it. What do you hope that readers take away from A Shoe Story?
Like we said at the beginning, I really hope that never too late. I mean, between Sai's story and Esme's story, I think you should be like, all right, you know, it's never too late.
I liked how Sai's and Esme's kind of like ran perpendicular to each other. Like he's like, I'm going to wait out my non-compete and then I'm going to go do something else. Like it was never too late for him. I loved it.
Oh yeah. Everyone loves that I said that. I'll come back in 10 years. I thought that was so like nothing thing, but everyone brings up that how this 90-year-old man was like, you know.
Yeah.
My mom was like that. She was 93 when she died, but she was never, I mean, maybe like to the last year of her life, she wasn't old. She was definitely just young.
I love that. Can you tell us what you're working on now? I know you said it's set on a fire island and that it's multi-generational, and the title is On Fire Island?
Fire Island, yeah. And it's literally due in a week, which is crazy because my daughter's getting married September 10th. So I'm like, I've never been so like, I mean, even when I jumped on this thing, I'm like, wait, I have to get on the, like, I'm just so overextended. But it's called On Fire Island. And it's the story of a woman who passes away and tells the story of her last month on Fire Island, but she's not alive. Like I'm not telling this well. I haven't perfected the elevator pitch. So she gets to spend one more summer on Fire Island, kind of like as a ghost, but it's an uplifting story. It is not sad. I mean, you definitely cry a few tears, but it's just an intergenerational story of everything that goes on in this one last summer. And it really tells, I don't know if you know anything about Fire Island, you probably don't, but it's a car-free island. It's like an hour from the city, and then you take a ferry, and there's, as I said, no cars. So everyone rides bicycles and pulls wagons, and it's narrow. It's very narrow, beach on one side, bay on the other, and everybody is in each other's business. And it's a really sweet story.
Well, I can't wait to read it. The only thing I know about Fire Island is that my favorite Peloton instructor loves to go hang out there, Cody Rigsby.
Oh, I heard, like, okay, so I am not a Peloton person, but when I told you I just played softball, I think I told you that. And my whole, like, a lot of my family comes out for 2 weeks, all my nieces and nephews and everything, and they rent houses, and we all just played together. And my niece said, make a comparison with whoever you just said, Cody and a pair of shoes. So he must, is he gay?
Yeah, he is.
So he must go to this place in Fire Island. There's a place in Fire Island that's gay called Cherry Grove in the Pines, which is like water taxi away from where I am, but it's very popular with all, you know, homosexuals. It's amazing. We go there a couple of times in summer. We either go to gay bingo, or we go for dinner, or you just go on a long run. It's far away from here. You usually have to take a water taxi, but that's in the book too.
Fantastic. Yeah. It sounds like a good
amazing place. I mean, because it's just the way it is. It's just amazing. It's great.
Well, you'll have to keep your eyes peeled for Cody then. And if you find Cody, take a picture with him and put it on your Insta.
I can't believe this whole Peloton world. I'm like so curious about it.
It is alive and well. And we love a good Peloton mention in a book, just saying. We had one other question come in. Being an only child, I loved that Esme was one as well. What made you decide to do that?
You know, I think I was thinking the other day that I'm one of 4, but I think I do that often. And I don't know why I knew with Esme, she had to be an only child because she had to be responsible completely for her parents in the situation, right? So that was that. But I do tend to do it a lot. I guess, I don't know why. I really don't know why. I'm going to start not doing it from this moment on.
Well, I think your explanation made sense. Like it really put everything on her shoulders in that situation. So.
Right. And I think she even says, like, if I had a sibling, it would
could have shared the burden.
That which I think she says something about if I had a sibling, like that would be my home, wherever my sibling was. It wouldn't matter about her house in Rochester. You know, it just wouldn't matter as much, which I think is very true.
I'm curious, you know, at the end of the book, the way that it all came together, do you ever think about like what Esme is doing after the fact, or when you end a book, or you just kind of put that character up on a shelf and she doesn't really have a place in your mind anymore?
Yeah, number 2.
Yeah.
Well, also because I go on to the next thing, and yeah.
That's how I read books. So I'm always curious as to how writers write books. So it's like, as soon as I'm done with a book, I'm like, okay, I loved it. Or, you know, however I felt about it, I process my feelings, and then I just immediately jump into another one because I love reading and all of the stories that you get to learn that way. So, okay, that's an interesting. Well, to wrap up our chat.
There is someone I do think about, this character. It's couple Natalie and Jeremy from 9 Women, 1 Dress. Sometimes I think, I wonder about them. I'm like, should I bring them back? Because I think they had more to tell of their story.
I haven't read that one yet, but I think it is actually at my library. So I have it on my TBR, and we did link it in our event so that everybody could check out all 3 books that you've written. So
thank you.
No problem. Well, Jane, we really appreciate your time. We love to end our chats by asking our authors what they are currently reading, loving, recommending to their friends. Or do you have any titles that you'd like to share with us?
Yes. I actually, one of them is under my iPad, so I can't show you the cover, but I really loved Nora Goes Off Script, Annabelle Monaghan.
Yes, we spoiler for anybody in the chat, we are actually going to do a little IG live with her soon. We love that one too. That was great.
And then I'm reading Alyssa Friedlander's new book. It's called, you know, she wrote Golden Hotel. Did you ever hear of that one? But it's called Most Likely To. It's coming out in October, and I'm really enjoying it. I just started it. If any of you are like in the have kids in sports, which I bet you so many of you do, there's this one book that I loved, and I feel like it just didn't catch on, which so many books don't. It's called Home or Away by Kathleen West.
Yeah, I read that.
I really liked it. Yeah. Yes. I loved that. I just gave that to my niece whose son is trying out for all those baseball travel teams. And yeah, I really liked that. So I've been reading a ton. I heard Ellen Hildebrand's Hotel Nantucket just got picked up for a movie.
I did see that too. Yeah.
Totally picture that.
I'm hoping her Paradise series gets to actually make it to TV. I know it got picked up, but you know, you never know how it's going to work out. But
you never know.
Well, Jane, I will get these recommendations out to everyone in the group, and I already can't wait to read on Fire Island and learn more about Fire Island. But in the meantime, we're going to continue to share our love for Issue Story, both in and outside of the group, and we wish you nothing but continued success.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always such a pleasure.
Oh, we appreciate it. Thank you, Jane. Have a good night.
I'll look for Cody for you all.
Yes, please.
I will. Thank you.
Bye.